Hey, everybody, welcome back to Taboo Talk with Sarah, the podcast that breaks the silence, fosters hope, and talks about the tough stuff so you never feel alone. I'm your host, Sarah. I'm a wife, a mum to three amazing boys, and I've spent the last 25 years holding space for real, honest conversations about life, death, and everything in between. And this conversation is one of those that goes beneath the surface, into the places we don't always have words for, but so many of us recognize. We're talking about grief, not just the kind that comes with losing someone through death, but the kind that can show up in all sorts of ways. The things we carry, the things we can't quite shake, the parts of life that change us in ways we don't always understand. And joining me for this conversation is Todd Maguire. Todd's a former Queensland police officer who spent 27 years in the force, much of that time working undercover in some incredibly difficult, high-pressure, really confronting environments. His story is one of lived experience, of trauma, loss, identity, and what happens when everything you thought you could carry on your own starts to catch up with you and gets way too heavy. After losing his partner to suicide, Ton found himself navigating not just grief, but the weight of everything he'd been holding for years. His memoir, Donnie, an undercover cop with a death wish, and you are so going to have to unpack why you called it that, offers a raw, honest look at what it means to survive and what it takes to learn how to do that in a healthier way. This conversation is about what happens when silence turns heavy, about the cost of carrying things alone, and the unexpected ways we can find our way back, even if it's not in the way we expected. So, Todd, welcome. I am so glad to have you here.
Thank you very much. That was a pretty exciting introduction. That's awesome.
Well, hopefully we can keep that excitement going. So, when you look back on everything that you've lived through, what's something about your story that most people don't get to see, but you really wish they understood?
I actually think
Sorry.
it's that's okay. The extent of the pain from the grief that you get from losing someone to suicide that's so close to you, and the way that grief transforms you into someone that you don't recognise, and people don't understand why you're behaving the way you are, and sometimes you don't have any control over it.
Yeah. Because it is one of those things that, sorry, frog in my throat.
There's a big introduction.
Yeah. One of those things that you can't really prepare for. Like, you might know that things aren't great. You might know that your partner's struggling, but that reality, and I know my listeners may not, but you actually found your partner after the suicide as well.
Yeah, it
Which
was
would
a
have
long
been,
time ago now, but
yeah.
still feels like it was yesterday. It was New Year's Day on 2000, just after the millennial bug was supposed to
Yep.
come, and it didn't arrive. But the world was supposed to end that day, but it did for my girlfriend and parts of myself. And what it did was just absolutely turn my life upside down. I didn't see it coming, and that sort of really does hit you with the guilt for many years. You think you should have seen it, you should have seen something, you should have been able to stop it, all of these things. But time sort of does funny things.
It does. It gives you different perspectives on that as well.
Yeah.
And hopefully somewhere along the line you've come to understand that you couldn't have seen it coming. You couldn't have changed things, but it obviously changed you. Do you want to unpack that a little bit for us?
Yeah, well, initially when it happened, you go through the grief of losing, someone that you love, so close and in such a terrible way. Um, when I found her in the morning, she'd used a white electrical cord, put it through the rafters, and she'd hung herself. And I had her 4-year-old son in my arms at the time, and we were looking for her around the house. We thought that she was just doing some washing downstairs, and I was playing a bit of a game with him. I was having a bit of fun. It's, not once did it even come in my mind that's what I'd find downstairs. I just thought she'd be doing some washing. Not once had it ever come into our thought process. Not once do we ever talk about even anyone else doing it or anyone thinking about doing it. Nothing, nothing. And and then to open that screen door and see her the way she was, it was just the most. I've described it before as a physical hit to my body. I've I've played a lot of rugby league, and some of the hits I got in rugby league compare to nothing to how hard it hit my body. It took my breath away. My knees buckled. I could hardly move, and I was just screaming. I was screaming at her. What have you done? Why? 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 All of these things. In the midst of that, I threw the young fella away as far as I could. Luckily, he didn't get hurt or anything. But my first thought was, he can't see
He
this.
doesn't. Yeah.
He can't see this. Yeah. So I threw him out, and then obviously went through so many different emotions of I was trying to pick her up. I was trying to cut her down. I was trying to put breath back into her life, but it was all too late. And then what had happened from there is just initially navigating that grief, going from having everything to nothing for starters. It looked like I'd had a pretty good life before that. Sort of had to go and live with my sister, rumpus room down, underneath the house. I had a bag and a bed and a TV, and that was it. And life really was looking bleak for me, and I turned to alcohol pretty heavily.
Yep.
That was the only way I could do it to numb the pain. Uh, Lots of things that I wish I'd done differently now, but you can't do that now. You can't sort of change many things that you've done. You can only learn from them and hopefully teach people, because all it does is delay the inevitable. You really do need to face things head on and get into the nitty gritty. If something bad has happened and there's some trauma, it's going to be shit, and it's either you're gonna have to do it now, or it's going to be even worse down the track.
Yes, you can only avoid dealing with it for just so long. And as painful as facing it is, as I said, you've either got to do it now or it's going to be even harder the longer that you stay
Yeah,
in
and
that
it's easy
space.
to say that because when you're in that pain, you want to delay it. You don't want to face it. You just don't want to. It's hard enough as it is. You're trying to navigate
Yeah.
everything, and yeah, not only do you then go through you know, why did she do it? Did I miss something? My guilt of should I have seen something? Was it did I say something? Did I do something? All of these things, once I sort of started accepting that, it was her decision, I then had to sort of navigate the next sort of way of grief and trauma for myself where, it really does hit your self-esteem, where you start convincing yourself, you go, well, okay, this person would rather die than be with me. And that's a pretty heavy thing to try and unpack yourself.
Yes.
You know yourself that it's not right, but you can't help but telling yourself that.
Yeah. You
And
can't help that that's where your brain
yeah,
goes
yeah,
because we try to make meaning out of whatever it is that has happened to us. And sometimes it's easier to listen to the negative
yeah.
stuff or to go into that dark place than to remember, hang on, it had absolutely nothing to do with you.
Yeah, well, you convince yourself. You still don't know, but I've done enough work now to know that, you know, logically it's not me. But who knows? One day I might find out. Who knows? No one will ever know. But then one thing that sort of, once you sort of got over one thing, it evolved into next things as well. Like, okay, it then made you work out, why did I, why was it that I couldn't handle this as much as well as I could? Why did I totally fall apart? Why did I turn to alcohol so heavily? Why did I do all of these things? And I sort of worked out that, I hadn't faced adversity at all in my life. And that was the first real challenge. And I was weak. I fell really hard. Um, and that's something, once I learnt that and once I realized that, I went, okay, I've got to start working on myself about how do I make myself stronger, because this, these sort of things are going to happen throughout my life. I can't fall so hard and turn to alcohol every time things don't go my way.
So that's the one thing that's certain. Life is going to knock us down,
Yeah.
but it's how we get back up. I think you said something in the book about surviving badly before you then learnt to survive well. So you went to that dark place and you figured out, hey, this is not a great place to be. I don't want to be here, and did something about it. So you touched on, you went to alcohol, and then
Yeah. Well, I also, I got drawn into the drugs as well, and that was purely because of the exposure of, within 12 months of Karen dying, I then took on the persona of Donnie Wilson. I decided that there was really no other future for me anymore. I still had no prospects, and being an undercover agent for the police gave me a life of doing whatever I wanted and not being me for a while. And that's how I looked at it. Donnie Wilson didn't have a worry in the world, but Todd Maguire did, and it was easier being Donnie. Donnie was he was he was the life of the party. He was a loose cannon. He was very reckless. I don't know how he survived, uh, and I can't talk about Donnie as though it was me, because it wasn't me. It doesn't feel like it was me. The way that he behaved wasn't me, but he was very much my alter ego that either saved me or could have killed me. I don't know which one it is still to this day.
maybe, like with most things, bit of both.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you know, he was still listening to Todd every now and then. You know, Todd's going, I don't really give a shit if I live or die. My pain's too hard. It's just, I want to see Karen. I want to be with her. All of these things. You missed her so much, but it was also hard to live as well with the pain. So sort of Donnie took took his opportunity of, going undercover and going into places where even tough undercover people wouldn't have even gone into, because I didn't care. I didn't give a shit. I just went, if it happens, it happens. Saves me having to do it. And I used to joke about it, saying, well, in the police, if you die on duty, you're a little bit, you're dying in the line of duty, and you get a police funeral and you get a boat named after you. So happy days. You don't
Didn't
get
know
that.
that one.
You don't get that if you die by your own hand. So
And back then, that still would have been, in those circles, frowned on too. So
100%.
then
Yeah.
you had to get around the stigma of that as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
I
Navigating.
love the name of your book, though. And hearing more of your story, the name actually makes sense, because you just really didn't. You were in that space where you didn't care, and you were just surviving from one day to the next. Now, what happened when you figured out that that way of living wasn't sustainable? When you did start to, I suppose, give a damn again?
It did take a while. It took me at least 18 months of being undercover. And I had, geez, I'm going to have to count them, the amount of guns that I had against my head, where I said, just shoot it, just do it, just get it over and done with. Or there was one stage where, I was in a bikie clubhouse and they put a shotty on my head and they said I was a cop. I said, well, I am. Everyone, you're all under arrest. Turn around, put your hands around your back. You're all under arrest. And they just thought I was joking because I didn't give a shit, and they all laughed and walked away. At one stage, I had a Vietnamese triad hit on my head for 100,000. Somehow I got out of that one, and maybe there was someone looking over me. I'm not sure, but um, it took a while, and it was one particular incident where I was buying some MDMA pills off a fella in the valley at a nightclub, and he'd gone through some tough times, and he'd lost he'd broken up with his wife, and he had a couple of kids, and we'd already closed the job, and he was arrested for trafficking of dangerous drugs, and he was looking at going to jail for a couple of years, and he ended up ringing me, and I thought it was the first time that he'd rung me after we closed, and he'd found out that I wasn't his mate. I was actually a fake mate, an undercover cop, and he called me, and I'm thinking he's going to give me a spray. He's going to give me an absolute mouthful. But he was crying, and he sort of said, "Hey, Donnie, just tell my kids I love them." And I said, "Hey, what are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing?" He said, "Oh, man, I'm not going to jail. I'm not going to jail. Stuff this." I said, No, that's not happening, man. No, where are you?" He said, "Oh, I'm at the cliffs over at New Farm, just about to jump." I said, "Hold on." So I raced over there. It's about 10 minutes away. He's still there, thank Christ. But Donnie sort of fell into line, and just Donnie went Donnie again and grabbed his hand and said, "No, if you're going to do it, I'll do it with you. Let's go. 1, 2, 3." And he sort of went, "Whoa, hey, what are you doing? What are you doing?" I've done it again. I said, "Don't be a pussy, mate. You're going to say you're going to do it. Let's do it. I'm not scared one bit. Let's go. Let's go. 1, 2, 3." And he's yanked me back. We've fallen down on the grass, and we both started crying. We both, picked each other up. We sat on a park bench for another 3 hours, and we just talked about absolutely everything. I told him about, my history. And, he just told me about how much he couldn't do that to his kids and his ex-wife and his family, and so forth. And it wasn't until I went home that night, where for 18 months I'd just been on like a collision course, a steam train. It just wasn't stopping. I had no emotion. I had nothing. I probably hadn't cried for a long time. And that night I just broke down. I absolutely broke down, and I cried uncontrollably. And it took that long for it to happen, where the reality of, oh man, what if we both did that today? Or what if I have done this? I really don't want to do that to my family, my brothers and sisters, my mum and dad, my extended family. I mean, I didn't have any kids at the time, but yeah, it was a real reality check for me. And that's when I just went, man, what am I doing? What the hell am I doing? And I gave myself the biggest kick up the arse whatsoever. Um, I don't think my alcohol or any other substance abuse changed for a while, but I know that my behaviour changed. I wasn't as reckless. I noticed I wasn't doing the stupid stuff as much. Still doing stupid undercover stuff, but I wasn't going through doors where, you know, most people would die if you go through the other end. And I
You
noticed
weren't rushing in.
I wasn't rushing in. I was stopping and at least thinking before I did, where before I'd rushed in without even thinking. Yeah, that slowed me down ever so slightly. Still probably not enough, but it was the first memory of me caring about myself. And then, I finished Undercover, and there was a whole story about reassimilating back into real life. I did this job down in Sydney, and I was this living in this nice apartment looking over Hyde Park. I was driving a BMW, hanging out at strip joints every night, going to parties on the harbour, and that was what Donnie's life was like. And then 2 weeks later, I'm back in uniform answering phones at Crime Stoppers. It was a big fall from grace, I can tell you.
Yes. Bit of a shift, that.
It was a big one, and then I had to try and remember my name was Todd, because people were calling me Todd, and I wasn't answering it because I was used to Donnie for 2 years, and
Yeah. You'd forgotten who you were.
I was, yeah, and I was enjoying being Donnie, and sometimes I wouldn't answer to Todd because Todd still had too many dramas. But I was lucky that I managed to meet a lovely young lady, and she seemed to see through my external bullshit that I was going through, and she saw something. To her credit, she's still with me today, and we've been married 20 years or so, and we've got a 20-year-old son as well. I'd have to say that my next massive kick up the arse was when my son was born. It made me really, really look at myself and say, mate, you've been such a selfish prick. All you've worried about is yourself, and you've been, searching for all these answers and searching for this and that and wanting to people to feel sorry for you. This kid won't give a shit about that. He won't give a rat's ass. He won't care what happened to you 5 years ago. He needs his dad to step up. And I'm not saying that I was a perfect dad. I fell. I didn't do the right thing many, many times, but I made sure that I was there and I was present and I did everything I could to the best of my ability. Um,
Yeah, that's one of the things they don't tell us about parenting. It's a really tough gig.
yeah, 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 exactly.
And especially if you have been through big experiences or challenges before becoming a parent.
Yeah,
So I was an older mum, and it was work Sarah had her shit together. I knew what I was doing. This tiny little baby brought me undone.
yeah, yeah, not easy.
No. And with what you'd been carrying and getting to that point, it would have been hard too, because you'd lost someone you cared so deeply about. You threw yourself into this whole other life where you were basically a different person. And then you met someone who saw who you really were behind all of that. And then now you've got this little life depending on you, and you can't keep doing things the way that you had been. So what were some of the shifts that you made there?
Burying it, I buried it. I still buried it for another 10 years, 10, 15 years. I tried to forget about it. I tried to put it behind me. Um, and I just tried to focus on my work and being a dad and doing the right thing. Uh, and that didn't end up well either, in terms of the drinking came back, and then eventually, the full blown PTSD really did surface, and I didn't even know it was happening. I didn't see it coming. I thought it was all finished. It was all over. I'd dealt with it all. When I say dealt with it, I'd forgotten it all. But it does come back. You don't have a control over it. It just comes back, and next thing you know, you're snapping at everything. You're angry at the world. You feel alone. You feel isolated. The world's against you. You hate. You got so much anger inside, and I couldn't control it. I really couldn't. Um, some days you know, every now and then I still have those days, but they're very, very few and far between compared to what they were. Um, and it wasn't until I really recognised it and, fell off the perch a few times, I started going, okay, I've got to do something about this. And I went and saw some people, um, all of those things, did everything that everyone told me that you've got to do, go and talk to someone, go and talk to someone. Well, I talked to someone and things weren't any different. What do I do? What do I do? I found something that I loved, which was, rugby league. I was coaching. I was coaching and I was volunteering and I was doing things for other people. And I found that to be a really good selfless way to 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 focus off me and basically it's not about me. I mean, try and do things for other people now. And I was really rewarded by that. I also noticed that um, you know, when I stopped the shift work and got my sleeping habits into play and got a bit healthier, started exercising again properly, all of those little things work really well.
Shifting out of survival mode.
I was on, the shift work just knocked me around massively.
It
I didn't
does.
sleep. I didn't sleep well anyway. For many many years, you know, with obviously my now wife, if I rolled over and she wasn't next to me, like I would panic like no tomorrow, because that's what happened. That's what happened with Karen. I rolled over and she wasn't there, and then went downstairs and found her downstairs. So those little triggers really cause some things that I had to sort of talk to yourself and go, okay, no, that's not going to happen again. Okay, don't worry about it. And you got to really talk to yourself and um, every now and then, yeah, I have to admit, I really every now and then I fell off. I fell off the wagon a few times. I always somehow had the strength to go, no, can't keep going like this, Todd. Let's do it. Let's do this again. And eventually it came good. And when I finally left the police and I wrote this book, and that was, I left the police 2.5 years ago, I'd have to say the day that I started writing it, which was probably 2 years ago, was the day that everything changed. Everything changed. I never thought that it would be so strong and so therapeutic where, and, and, and I was happy with that. I was basically happy that I'd just got it all out on paper. And then all of a sudden it turned into a thing that looks real. And, and then people are reading it and going, oh, you don't know what that's done for me, Todd. That's just, and it's generated conversations. It's created tears with blokes who I thought wouldn't even know what a tear was. And I'm blown away by the reach that it's had, and it's helped people, because from the start I said, I'm no expert in this. I've just lived it. But if I can give some sort of perspective on how I felt, that might help other people, and because I did notice that in the earlier days that there was no literature on this where I felt it I could resonate with. Everything was really textbook, university degree type mental health stuff. And probably over the last 10 years, with the advent of the internet and social media, people talking about their lived experiences, it's for the first time ever I've gone, but that's how I've been feeling. That's how I've been feeling. And I felt so alone thinking it was just me. But now we could connect with the rest of the world and going, wow, it's not just me. I don't feel that bad anymore. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's one of the reasons why I started this show too. And I'm guessing why you wrote that book, that realization that so many of us go through these things, but we never talk about them and end up feeling like we're completely alone.
Yeah. I'd
And your
I'd
story
also
is saying that you're not,
yeah,
and letting other people see, nope, somebody else has been there too. So thank you for that. Because, yeah, those experiences and those things that really knock us down are something we need to talk about so we can help each other get back up.
yeah, yep. Because for many years I felt I was the only one going through this hardship, but now I realise bloody 95% of people are going through something or have, and they've been pushing it down below themselves, and I'm just amazed by the amount of people that have just put their hand up and said, you know, thanks for being so vulnerable. You got the ball rolling. Um, when I saw that you could do it, I thought, yep, I can talk about it now. I thought you were some big tough footy player. I'm going, well, guess what I reckon toughness is. My new um, definition of strength of being a man is being able to be vulnerable and be strong about controlling your feelings and your emotions. That's being strong. Being strong is not keeping it all in anymore. That's the old school way, and that's not going to help anyone.
Because keeping it all in, and your experience shows that what could happen, like, yes, you got out of it, but it so easily could have gone the other way and you not have made it through your undercover experience.
Yeah, and I'm so glad
And
that I did get through
yeah,
now. Yeah,
yeah,
like again, it's one of those things where, it's another message I'm sort of saying in the book as well that, okay, you might be in your 20s and you're not feeling good in yourself and good in your skin, and you go, well, I don't want to be here anymore. You know, I was thinking that because of a situation that happened to me. But look at down the track, like I'm so glad that nothing bad happened, or I did anything stupid. And I want to get that message out to some of the youngsters that are just not feeling good in their skin that things do get better. They really do. They may not think it, they may not see it, but life does get better. And when you get to, I actually said, when I get to my age now, at 53, I'm happiest I've ever been. It's magnificent.
yeah. Life does get better. And
It does.
sometimes it's going through those hard things that make it that way.
Yeah, well, that old saying of, you've got to go through the storm to find the rainbows. And,
Yeah. Rainbow comes after the rain. Yeah.
yeah. Um, life isn't always going to be rainbows, and sometimes hanging out in the storm, even though it's tough, it's good for you. It really is.
Yes. And if we didn't have those experiences, we wouldn't appreciate the good times when they do come.
Yeah. I'd been searching for 20 years to make sense of Karen's death, and I wanted to honour it somehow as well. And this book's actually done it. It's actually now made her death worth something because it's now helped so many people already, and it's only been out since February, and I'm just amazed by the traction that it's had and how many people have just jumped on board and just said, it's really helped me. I've just loved hearing your perspective on it, and it's made me then talk about this and that, and I said, you don't know how much that makes me happy.
Yeah. You're making a big difference.
Yeah,
Because, yeah,
well,
like looking at our teens now and the statistics around youth mental health and society, and they're horrifying.
yeah, it's awful.
It's like 1 in 4 will have a mental health condition. And I wouldn't be surprised if that actually keeps getting higher. Um, Suicide is the leading cause of death for our young people, and this is just not okay.
No, no, I
Because
I can't I can't comprehend losing a child to that. I like I've lost a partner, but that that's something that I can't even comprehend.
And suicide usually, it's a very permanent solution to what most likely is a temporary problem. And if you reach out and get help and you don't have to go through it all alone, which thank you for writing a book that points out you don't have to do it all alone and what you're going through isn't that unusual. So many of us
Yeah,
have been there.
yeah, 100%. There was I won't name names, but I was at a place recently, and I was an ex NRL star. I had showed him a book and everything, and I really thought he was just going to make a joke and laugh at it or whatever. But I went, oh, who cares? I don't give a shit. It was enough for him to sort of go, I'm going through some troubles at the moment, and next thing you know, we're talking some really deep stuff, and it's like, wow, that's so cool. Yeah, and he goes, mate, thank you very much. That's what I needed. And I just didn't see that coming. That was so good. And I went, wow, I didn't think I could. I didn't think that was going to do that. Again, I was being selfish and I was writing it for myself to feel good and to get over what I'd been doing. Not once did I think that it was going to help other people.
Yes. And it's amazing when that thing that you do for yourself actually has that kind of impact.
Yeah,
So if somebody's listening now and they're in that space where you were, that they're carrying stuff and they just can't seem to shake it, what would you want them to know?
that they are loved. They will be missed. That the ripple effect of them leaving this world is immense. It's amazing. If you think that you're going to make the world better and it's going to be better for your family and your friends if you weren't there and you're a burden on them or, you know, you just make their life harder, that is not correct. That is not correct whatsoever. Um, One thing that I can tell anyone who's listening to that right now is about the black dog, about, what happened with Karen is and that's why you'll see that on the front page, front cover of the book of just a black dog sort of over the shoulder. And, 6 years later, after when Karen passed away, the young fella sort of went and had been living with the dad, and and the dad sort of said, you know, I think Clark needs to know what happened that day. And when he said, why was that black dog pinning me up against the wall outside? I just went, there's no black dog, mate. No black dog. We didn't have a black dog. We didn't even have a dog. There was no dogs in the street. And when I went out and got you later, you weren't, there was no dog. And it could be interpreted in many, many ways, but the way that I've made sense of it is that the black dog that Karen had got transferred over to her loved ones, being myself. And I had to carry that for the next 25 years or probably forever. Um, and But Karen probably thought that she was doing us a favour by leaving with her black dog, but it didn't go with her, it stayed with us. And I've had to live with her pain that she had. And that's what it's going to do. If you think that you're leaving this planet to make it easier for your family and your friends, just remember the pain that you're experiencing, you're going to pass that on to your family and friends. You don't really want that.
No. And grief is one of those things that it's not linear. It doesn't follow a predictive course. It's not go through all the stages and you're better and it never hits you again. There'll be times where you are fine and then other
Yeah.
times where it hits you like a ton of bricks and you're right back where you were. Yeah. And that doesn't matter whether the grief is sudden and unexpected from something like suicide, or if you've been caring for somebody and you've lost them after a long journey that way. It's not something that you're ever really prepared for, and it shifts you, it changes you.
Yeah, 100%. As I was, writing this book, my mum passed away. And right at the very end of the book, and that's why I was writing it, and that's why it's right at the end I meant to say, is, she just went into hospital with, COVID-like symptoms and thought it was going to be antibiotics, but she never came home. And it was pretty devastating. It didn't really see it coming. But at least we got, 4 weeks with her instead of something very sudden. And I write in the book that was when it made me realise, on another occasion, this was another significant loss in my life. How am I going to deal with it?
Mm.
How am I going to deal with it? Am I going to go down? Is Donnie going to come back, and is he going to lose his nanas and, fall off the wagon and
Blow your
start?
life up.
Yeah. And I really had to work hard and convince myself and talk to myself and coach myself and say, what would Mum want me to do? Would she be proud of me if I behaved like I did after Karen's death, in honour of her? Or would she want me to be a bit more smarter about it? Because I knew she was, she didn't like what I was doing at all when Donnie was around. And she was always worried. She was so scared of things, and I don't blame her. And I wanted to honour her in a real way where I could say, well, no, I dealt with it with maturity and honour. And I didn't get 100% right, but I was certainly a hell of a lot better.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know that we can ever get that one 100% right.
No. Yeah, I'm not.
But we look back and still go, oops, could have done that better.
Yeah, I know. And I don't want people who know me to watch this and go, oh, not the day that I saw you, Todd. Yeah, I know. There were some days that I didn't do it right, but then I certainly, there was other days where there was a lot of better days than bad days.
Yeah. And I suppose you knew how far down you could go, how dark that road could be, and you stopped yourself before you went there,
Yeah, exactly.
because you focused on what your mum would want, and on the legacy that she would want her life to be. And
Exactly.
you crumbling in a heap is probably not part of her plan.
Yeah. And I sort of made you think as a little bit more, going, well, okay, well, what would Karen have been thinking if she was up there, wherever she is, watching, going, what the hell is he doing? What is he doing?
Yes.
And you get embarrassed about it a bit. I do. I get very embarrassed about some of the things that I've done. Um, I've had a lot of people recently speak to me and say, do you remember when this happened? No. Can we not talk about that one, please? No.
Yeah. I would prefer not to remember that.
I know. But you can't change life, can you? And just learn from
No.
it. Just learn
Yes.
from it.
All we can do is take the lessons and the love and try to do better next time.
Yeah, exactly. And hopefully some of the youngsters will learn from the idiots like myself and go, yep, I remember him saying that. I'm going to try not to do that.
Yes. Yeah. And hopefully you've passed on those lessons to your son of how to do things better.
I think I have, actually, yeah. I think I have. He's made some very good choices recently, and I'm very proud of him for doing that. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I know I wouldn't want to be a teenager now.
No, it wouldn't be easy. Wouldn't be easy.
No.
No.
And I look at the challenges that they're facing, that we didn't have things that same way, because I'm only a couple of years younger than you. So, but when we were young, if we were going through a particularly hard phase, if things were tough at home, school was our escape. If things were tough at school, home was our escape. Not for everyone, but as a general
Yeah.
rule. Whereas these days, they don't seem to have that because they're
There's no hiding. Yeah.
connected all the time. So,
Yeah. Exactly. It's
and as there you go.
Yeah, I think it's really hard, for them to be connected constantly, and they just, there's no rest, and I don't think they understand the value of turning that phone off for the night. Mm.
Okay. So, just to finish off, is there anything like, one final thought you'd like to leave our audience with?
One message that I do have, um, and it's for anyone really, but my analogy in the book is that when I played rugby league, uh, I had a few injuries. I've got a plate in my knee, I've got a plate in my arm, and I've had eye socket breaks where I see double out of that eye. And then, I got a brain injury through trauma. My knee doesn't run the same. My arm isn't as strong, and I see double out of that eye. And I don't see any difference between that and PTSD, the injury that I got to my brain through no fault of my own. I can still live a normal life with all of the injuries that I've got. Cold days, my knee still bloody plays up, and the arm doesn't, whatever. And then when I do play sport, the double, I see I've got to catch the one on the bottom, not the top. So it's all about working around life, and that thing up there is no different to an injury that I caused in rugby league, that happened in rugby league. And life doesn't have to be, it doesn't have to ruin your life. You can work with it, you can manage it, but you got to do the right things to manage it. And that includes sleep, exercise, being around the right people, all of those things that, make a difference.
Thank you so much for sharing your story so openly with us today and reminding us that being vulnerable is actually really, really strong.
Yep. It's
So
a true
thank you
strength of
for
a
that.
man.
It is.
Thank you.
These conversations aren't easy, but they matter because they remind us that we're not alone in what we carry. And even when it feels that way, we're not. So if this conversation resonated with you, or if you're sitting with something that feels hard to name, please know that you don't have to do it alone. Reaching out, even in a small way, can be a powerful first step. If you'd like to connect more with Todd or learn more about his book, Donnie, an Undercover Cop with a Death Wish, we'll have all those details in the show notes. Or if you want to, reach out to me and I'll be happy to connect you, because I think this is a really important story that needs to be shared to remind us that none of us are alone in our struggles. Thank you for being here, for listening. Until next time, take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and remember, your story matters, so share it. Bye for now.